Hello everyone, my name is Dominic Moore and I want to thank you for tuning into the second best thing you hear all week. We have a great show for you today that includes a top-notch film review of a middle-of-the-road movie, at least in my opinion, as well as the box office results for this past weekend. And as a cherry on top, James and I are both going to break down our predictions. You can take them to Vegas, bet on them, probably pick mine, seeing as I'm usually the better of the two. So James, what movie were we reviewing this week?
First off, you're a dick. We're going to review War Dogs, the Todd Phillips Hangover remix.
It definitely has a Todd Phillips feel. For those of you who are unaware, this film, and we are going to include probably some spoilers, we're going to try to avoid them as best as we can throughout this review, but as always, if there's something that comes up that we think we need to say, we will, so be prepared for those. But War Dogs is a story of two men who were best friends in junior high. They went their separate ways because one character, played by Jonah Hill, classic Jonah Hill, where nobody likes him, nobody trusts him, and he's a bad influence. And Miles Teller plays, I wouldn't say a goody two-shoes, but more of the down on his luck kind of character. So,
which I still don't understand because his girlfriend in this film is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. Played by Ana de Armas, who was in the movie Knock Knock. And don't Google that with your parents sitting next to you. Could be dangerous.
If you like to live dangerously, go for it.
These two kind of meet up again after a friend's funeral. As I said, Miles Teller is down on his luck. He just sunk all of his money into a failed business. And Jonah Hill offers him a job working for him, where they go onto the government website. They do a decent enough job of telling you not the exact website, so jackasses like us couldn't go and do it. But they get into the world of arms dealing for the U.S. military. They start out doing all of the legal procedures. They're going through it in a very normal way, and they only pick off like the small kind of contracts, the ones that they can get and the one they can handle. But in a classic fly too close to the sun scenario, they bite off more they can chew, causing them to cut corners and eventually do several things that are illegal, leading to confrontation between the two, confrontation between them and the U.S. government, and confrontation between a lot more dangerous people. So, basic concept of the film. James, let's start off with your positives of War Dogs.
That it was based on a true story. That is a definite positive. It definitely makes the story more interesting when it actually happened. And the U.S. government, it honestly makes the U.S. government look pretty shitty.
Yeah, it does.
And it's amazing that two 20-something-year-old, basically our age, if not younger, were able to get a $300 million gun contract.
Yeah.
It's a little scary.
A little bit, for sure. I enjoyed the idea of it being based on a true story. I wouldn't say it didn't. I'm usually pretty good at losing myself in a movie, so true story doesn't affect me a ton. But in that sense, it felt weird in a good way of the time frame this movie was set, because it was like 2005 to 2008-ish area. And granted, it's only 10 years ago, but I kind of felt a little bit of nostalgia for it, I guess, in the sense that, I mean, you and I were in our mid-teens at the time, so we were kind of just grasping what was going on in the world, and the war was anything anybody was going to talk about. And in this movie, they have some old cell phones, a few older models of a car, and they show some news footage from back in the day, and there's a lot of mention of Bush and Cheney, and no matter what your political affiliation, this movie doesn't particularly shine them in a very good light.
No.
But it was just interesting, and it kind of was easier for me to get in the world knowing, like, they did a solid job of building. I mean, I'm sure there were certain things, like one of the Porsche models might not have been available in, like, 2005 or something like that. Or a gun was made in, like, 2007 when it was supposed to take place in 2005. that doesn't really bother me.
That's normal fact checking that movies somehow mess up.
Yeah, so I thought that was really cool. You have any other positives?
Not really.
I thought Todd Phillips actually directed a good movie. Linearly, it worked. The story flowed well. And something that you brought up to me, actually, because we didn't see this movie at the same time. In certain film areas, you could probably consider this like a gimmick, but where he would have a scene that fades out to black and words would appear on the screen in small white writing, and it would be a line of dialogue you would hear in the next 15 minutes of the movie. And it's essentially like, it was just a kind of a cool moment for the people in the audience, because the first time you see it, you're like, oh, what the hell does that mean? And then they say it, and you're like, hey.
I see what you did there. That was creative, making me think and wait for it.
Yeah, so, and then you're kind of looking forward to that for the rest of the movie. So I thought that was a cool part. It's a bit gimmicky because it kind of lets you end a scene without really a transition into the next one. From like, granted, I'm a jackass who I don't know a whole lot about exact filmmaking. I didn't go to film school or anything like that, but I listen to people who have, and they've talked about in the past how, like, a lot of movies in the 90s, you'd have those like wipe screens and stuff like that, and you see it if you like watch a high school kid's home video. Basically the transitions that I use on YouTube. So tells you about our video quality. But
it's a high school level.
Yeah, it's stuff that doesn't happen so much anymore, to where when it does happen, it's kind of predominant. But I thought the black screens with the words were nice. They were a decent touch that Tarantino uses stuff like that, like, well, in Hateful Eight when he does his chapters and stuff like that. Not the exact same thing, but it was interesting to see. And also, it was better than having to see 7 months later in the bottom left corner of every scene.
Yeah, that wouldn't have been nice more than once.
Yeah.
Overused if it was done multiple times.
Yeah.
Negatives?
There are a few for me. I don't think anyone in this movie was outstanding in any way.
Like Miles Teller?
Yeah.
He didn't do anything crazy.
Yeah. I wrote in my article, which you can find on www.ihbpodcast.com, that he's the epitome of cast any actor in this role. Like, I saw nothing truly specially brought, and you could have put any 20 to 30 something year old actor in that role, and I think he would have been just as good.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most emotional you saw him was towards the end, and he was upset with Jonah Hill's character.
Yeah, that's another major issue I had, and I'll get it. It has to do with who we mentioned before, Ana de Armas's character, who plays Miles Teller's wife / baby mama. You never see him get married or anything, so it's a little up in the air. I think you see a ring at some point on Miles Teller's hand, but it was 2005. Maybe he just was really into Chris Angel.
It's a definite possibility.
Yes.
Chris Angel or Creed.
Yeah. So throughout the movie, several times, and I'll go into Ana de Armas. I thought Ana de Armas did a very good job. I thought she brought some real emotional moments to the film, and when she was supposed to, like, she brought the heart, and you kind of believed what she was saying. She was downright distractingly beautiful, so
I couldn't focus.
But one of the biggest issues I have with this movie is her story arc is god-awful. She starts out as, like, she's the love interest. They're already together, and, again, spoilers because for all this part, because I'm going to ruin a lot of the movie for you. And then we find out that she gets pregnant. Miles Teller has this kind of freak-out moment where how is he going to pay for the baby with all of his money gone in that failed business? And then he decides to compromise his morals in order to sell guns for the government, despite the fact he opposes the war and his wife really opposes the war, and they go to rallies and all that. So he hides it from her and says he's just selling bed sheets to the military.
And pillows.
And pillows. So then she finds out that he was lying and he's actually selling guns. And she's like, I'm going to leave you. Like, I can't take this. You lie to me. And she kind of leaves, but she doesn't really leave. And they promise to tell each other, or he promises to tell the truth from here on out. And he does kind of. He tells her more of the truth, but not entire truth. But the parts he leaves out are kind of stupid to me.
Yes, I agree.
To where, like
when he was hiding the money.
Yeah, there's no...
At that point, you're selling guns. You're probably going to have some cash on you.
Yeah. Unless, like, he assumed that she was going to leave him, but they make no allusions to that in the movie, aside from her leaving, like, 3 or 4 times throughout because she found out he lied again.
Yeah.
But that made no sense. When she freaks out because he lied about only staying in the hotel in Jordan, like... Is this something your husband sells guns for a living? You have this $1 million home in a giant skyscraper in Miami. I feel like her morals were all over the place.
Yeah, I agree.
Like it felt like every time things went well for them, the writers were like, "Hey, let's have the wife freak out so we have conflict." Because that's all she was kind of there for. She has no real arc aside from that.
I did a deep dive into Wikipedia reading about these two guys. And David Packhouse, Miles Teller's character, was arrested for allegedly agreeing to have sex with an undercover deputy for $400 in 2013. And I was trying to figure out who wrote the book that the movie was based off of. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if it was this guy.
Packhouse?
Yeah, because it doesn't seem like... I mean, he doesn't seem like a nice person at all. And it just makes me wonder how true some of this stuff was.
Yeah, I mean, there's...
Especially with the whole girlfriend thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a loose interpretation, and I guarantee most of that was just for the movie. Because if you don't have that for the character, he has no real motivation.
Yep.
Aside from just making money.
The actual dude was in the movie, too.
Was he?
Yeah, he was... I don't know if you remember at the beginning when his Miles Teller's character is trying to sell the bed sheets to the one nursing home, and the dude's playing a guitar on stage. That's him.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. To circle back and kind of close up my point, which originally sent me down my little tirade, Miles Teller shows no emotion. Like, even when he gets left like 3 or 4 times, you never see like a cutaway scene of him sitting in a darkened apartment with like a bottle of liquor next to him or something. Like, it's just, she leaves, he goes about his business, and he makes a phone call. That's roughly it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few times he got upset at Jonah Hill's character, but it didn't really, get more serious until the end, until he realized, he didn't pay people, and he told Bradley Cooper's character, which made Bradley Cooper's character basically abduct him and scare the shit out of him. But other than that, yeah, he didn't do anything. Yeah. Very boring, Miles Teller.
Yeah, I agree. He was just a whole bunch of blah for me.
Yeah. What'd you think of Bradley Cooper?
I mean, he was fine.
Could have been played by anyone.
It really could have.
But he's just friends with Todd Phillips.
Yeah. And also the character didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I get initially when he's interjected into the movie and his plot reasoning for being there and all that. But at the very end, that's what I mean. Like, and again, spoilers going to ruin the hell out of this part.
See, this is what makes me wonder how true some of this shit is.
Yeah. After Teller and Hill get arrested, eventually Teller gets house arrest, but then kind of time passes to where he's off of that.
Well, he's the massage therapist at that point, and someone calls in, and he shows up, and Bradley Cooper's character answers the door.
Yes, who was the man who previously kind of threatened to kill him, and didn't exactly double-cross them on a deal, but like didn't tell them exactly how much profit he was making, and short-sold them a little bit. And then just kind of out of nowhere, for no reason, because you haven't seen that this guy is a good guy. Like, there's been no indication that like he has a moral compass. Compass or soul. Compass is a much better word. And he's just like, here's some money.
Yeah. Here's
$1 million because I pointed a gun at you once.
Yeah, and for not telling the cops anything.
Yeah.
Which he could have gone and did after you gave him the money.
Yeah, so...
I mean, at that point, you think you're done, and, if he didn't say anything, you're in the clear. Why bother paying him after the fact?
Who knows? That felt like a reshoot to me.
Could have been.
I felt like there was granted there is time that passes the movie, but I felt like just their looks were a little off.
Yeah, possibility.
You have any more negatives, or should we just go straight into the review or into our ratings?
Nope.
So what is your rating on a scale of 1 to Good Will Hunting?
A flat out 5.
5 even.
Apples, because it was nothing crazy. It was a normal movie.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't do anything impressive. Kept my interest for most of it, but the acting was blah.
Yeah.
Some characters had more development than others. Obviously, the two main characters had the most. But other than that, it was just a normal film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm of a similar mindset. My rating's a bit higher than yours, and I'll get into that in a minute. A lot of your points I can't disagree with. We've talked about several of them. But my rating, on a scale of 1 to Good Will Hunting, I went 5.85 apples.
Let's hear this one.
Yeah, because...
Another decimal. The 10th decimal. No. 1000th? I don't remember. Math sucks. It's the 1000th after that?
No, it's 100th.
10th, 100th, 1000th?
Yeah.
That's it.
In my article...
I knew that wasn't right when I said it.
In my article at www.ihbpodcast.com, the way I introduce my story is talking about how Jim and I have a running joke on the podcast that math sucks.
I'm glad I could help
that fit very well.
And for the record, we talked about that beforehand, so I thought it would be good just to fit that in.
Yes, it was totally staged.
Yes.
I went 5.85. Originally, I had it at like a 5.4, but I didn't hate the movie. I was never really bored. I don't think anybody did great, but I also don't think anybody did bad. Like, there's nobody in this movie where I'm like, oh, wow, that guy was really not good. And the more I thought about it, the more I liked Jonah Hill's performance. I thought he did a good job. If you go by Major League Baseball rules, where every team has to have at least one all-star selected to the all-star game, Jonah Hill would be the all-star for me. Because while his character was one note for the most of the movie, there were a couple of scenes where you kind of saw the vulnerable side of him. The scene where Teller and his wife are having the dinner party, and he kind of walks in, and he's like, the hell's this?
The hell, why wasn't I invited?
Exactly. And then he immediately reverts back to the cocky asshole and stuff like that. But like those small moments made it a little bit better for me.
I mean, he did a nice job of playing different parts throughout the movie, too.
He did.
Depending on who he was talking to.
Yeah, and then, like I said, I thought Todd Phillips directed a good movie. I thought the story was interesting. I thought they screwed it up a little bit at points, but for the it's not a 6, which is fresh on the tomato meter. I couldn't go that high, but I think 5.85 is respectable. I've seen much worse movies this year.
Yeah, so have I.
Yeah. All right, so that was our review of War Dogs. Let us know what you guys thought about it in the comment section below. Or you can hit us up on Twitter at IHB Podcast, or send us an email with your thoughts to
IHBpodcast@gmail.com. Next up, we have the Box Office Battle, a competition for bragging rights between friends who want nothing more than to prove they know more than the other guy, and who buys the first round of drinks. How the game works is each week, my co-host and I will predict the top 5 films at the box office. Whoever gets the closest to the correct order wins the point for the week. I feel like I read that every week now.
Yeah, it's been like, what, 3 in a row now?
Yep.
Yup.
It's almost a month.
Almost a month. Anyway, the results for last weekend's box office are as follows. Taking the top spot for the 3rd week in a row was Suicide Squad, pulling in an additional $20.9 million for a modest drop of 52.1%. The second spot sees the continued success of the R-rated comedy Sausage Party, bringing in another $15.5 million for a worldwide total of $71.7 million on a $19 million budget. That's a good return. Third place goes to our first debuting film of the week, War Dogs, which James and I just gave a brilliant review of.
It was good enough.
We've had better. Earning $14.7 million. Fourth goes to another debut film in Kubo and the Two Strings with $12.6 million. And rounding out the top five was Pete's Dragon, earning $11.4 million. Noticeably absent from the top five, which may be conflicting reports because early estimates had these two going back and forth for the fifth spot. But Ben-Hur, which was a $100 million plus movie, did not crack the top five, taking the sixth spot with only $11.2 million.
Paramount cannot be happy about that.
No, not at all. So, James, just tell the people who won once again this week and give us your thoughts.
Dumb one.
Yep.
My thoughts on this are Suicide Squad's actually at number one for the third week in a row. Did not see that coming.
Yeah, well, I mean,
it was a shitty week, though.
Yeah, supposedly though the box office is up from last week,
money wise.
Yes, or not last week, last year at this time,
Oh.
because there was no Suicide Squad to kind of bump up, but it's a rough week when you look at it overall. I mean, we had 3 movies that debuted this week, and they couldn't even crack the top 2. Yeah, but like you said, Suicide Squad coming in first place, that's impressive. I mean, anytime you can win 3 weeks in a row at the box office, you have to be happy. Obviously, they wish these numbers were a little higher, but they're up to $578 million worldwide. Respectable number so far. They've still got a little bit of ways to go. Like, if they do another $200 million, they're going to be happy. We've talked about that in the past of that roughly $800 million goal. It'll be close. But I wouldn't be surprised if this movie topped out at like 710, 720.
How far away is it from that?
Quick math, 120 million from 700.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, you got
another decent week.
Yeah, it's gonna do above 10 probably next week. I doubt it falls off.
Another
50%, just because, I mean, you'll get people who see it for the third time, people who see it for the first time. I think it'll do above 10. 10's not tough. I mean,
and when you're in 3,924 theaters,
yeah, going up against the competition, which we'll get to in a minute,
not good.
No. War Dogs is another one that I was a little surprised at how low this one was.
Do we know what their budget was?
$40 million reportedly.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I mean,
a little higher than I thought.
Yeah, and this movie's also not doing well overseas. I mean, it's a very American movie, and
I'm sure it will not do well in Albania.
Most likely not. Probably not so good in Iraq and Jordan. I wonder how much they're going to fall off next week. They are benefiting from the lack of competition, I would say.
50%.
You think 50? I'm probably going to go more than 50. I think like 55, which is not good.
No.
But, yeah. I thought it deserved a little better. Going into it, I was projecting like 28.
Yeah, I was too.
And then after...
I mean, we talked about Central Intelligence being another R-rated comedy type that could have been higher. Wasn't as many laughs as I thought there'd be.
No, it was much more serious.
Yeah.
Except
Jonah Hill's weird chuckle.
Yeah. And then just a couple... Kubo has a very high rating on Rotten Tomatoes, like 96%, but that number's rough, 12.6 million. This is from the creator of movies like Coraline that came out a couple years ago. It's not from Tim Burton, but it's very like Nightmare Before Christmas style, the puppetry, the like stop motion kind of stuff. And it's a beautiful movie. Just I haven't seen it yet. I'm probably going to try to see it this weekend because it looks very good. And I like the idea of the story. But that studio has been slowly like going downhill. Like they've had some pretty big Oscar-nominated films, and I think they've won for special effects and things like that. But I mean, this is a real shot. So yeah, it was an interesting week, and truthfully, there's not a whole like aside from Ben-Hur is clearly the story. Like you have $100+ million movie and you
in
make
3,000 theaters.
Yeah, and you make 11, and because that's the highest it's ever going to be. So are we looking at like 100? Because they had to pump at least 30 to 40 to. It's most likely over 50 million in marketing for this movie. So you're probably looking at. I haven't looked at the international numbers. You know what it's done total box office so far?
Box Office Mojo is apparently updating.
Yeah, even if it does 200 million world in the international market, it's still going to become a failure. Because at that point, you're looking at like 230 on $100 million budget, and that's never good.
No, that's terrible.
All right, so those were the results for last weekend. How about we go into our predictions? Since I won last week, I will do you the honor of hearing my picks first.
All right.
First up, I am going to go with Don't Breathe, a movie that should have been entitled Don't Even Breathe, which I had the pleasure of seeing last week, and I will have a review up for you guys on that one shortly. In second place, I'm going to go with The Mechanic Resurrection, because you always pick a movie that has the word resurrection in it. That's not a true fact, but it's a rough week, and I got no other explanation for why I'm putting this movie second. In third spot, I am going Suicide Squad. Like I said earlier, I think it'll still do over 10 million, and I think it's going to be a rough week again. That's going to be good for third. Fourth, I'm going Sausage Party. This is a bit of a gamble between my fifth spot pick, War Dogs. Just kind of hoping on this one. I want Sausage Party to do better. I want it to continue its success. I thought it was a pretty good movie. And like I'm rounding out with War Dogs just because I don't see any newcomers coming on. Although Kubo would probably be a good, decent pick. I bet you Kubo only falls off a small amount. Screw it. I'm going to keep it.
Keeping what at 5?
I'm going to keep War Dogs.
Mine's similar. I forgot one. Thankfully you went first. I've got Don't Even Breathe. Is that what we're calling it?
That's what it should be called.
We'll call it that.
Yeah.
Don't Even Breathe at number 1. Bit of a gamble, but I'm going Hands of Stone at number 2.
Ah, shit.
Yes. Victory. Suicide Squad at 3. The Mechanic Resurrection. Stupid title. At 4, and then War Dogs at 5. And I'm debating about Kubo as well.
Well,
but I'm going to leave War Dogs in there.
Yeah. It was a valiant effort, but well done, James. You have now tied it up again, because there's no chance that Hands of Stone makes less money than Sausage Party or War Dogs. So
I hope not. That would be very bad.
It would.
Alrighty. On to next week.
Yeah. Let us know what your guys' top 5 picks are in the comment section below, or you can hit us up on social media, which I'm going to give you guys out in a second. James will try to do the same, even though he couldn't do shit before. But before he does that, I want to thank you all for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this episode, please like it in that little thumbs up area right to the bottom right of the screen, and also subscribe to the I've Had Better Podcast Network. Also, follow us on Twitter. That is at IHB Podcast. Or on Facebook, go like the I've Had Better Podcast page. James, do your thing.
You can follow me on Twitter at @the_Kaiser_Soze or on Facebook as Jimmy Langos. And please check out the website, www.ihbpodcast.com. And please subscribe and listen to our iTunes feed. And you can find that by searching IHB Movies, I've Had Better Podcast, I've Had Better Movies.
All right, I'm Dominic Demore. You can follow me on Twitter at Dom Demore. That's DOMDEMORE. Or on Facebook as Dominic Demore. James, how was the show today?
We've had better?
I'd say so. Good night, everybody.